Hey, everybody, welcome to the show. And today I get to hang out with my friend Ryan Wall, who is an EOS implementer and amazing human. Ryan, welcome to the show.
Man, excited to be with you today and get to hang and chat a little bit.
So good to be with you, man. So my first question for you, we're gonna go all kinds of places today, and one thing I want to put a bookmark in is I want to talk about your family OS um, uh, endeavor that you're working on. But before we get into that, I'd like to just get to know you. So can you tell us a defining moment in your life?
A defining moment? There's so many.
Yeah, I
Maybe,
ask hard questions, bro.
yeah. There's two that come to mind. Can I share two?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
please.
One is fourth grade. It's like, I think 1992-ish. And my teacher at the time, I was in this tiny little town, grew up in this tiny little town. And it was the year of Bush, Clinton, and Ross Perot. And we did like a little
Whoa.
fake school election, kind of thing. And the teacher like grabbed me by my face and she's like, "I think you could be president of the United States someday." And it sounds encouraging, but dude, that messes with somebody's head when it comes to like calling and have you achieved
Yeah,
enough whenever. Yeah, so it sounds encouraging from a teacher, but there's also like the weight of that. There's a big part of my story of following Jesus was just like, hey, that is like crushing weight of defining this is what success looks like, and anything less is not enough. Then
man.
yeah, so that's one, and then two, my junior year in college. A friend convinced me to take this entrepreneurship class. I didn't really even know anything about entrepreneurship at the time. We go into this class, and I feel like the professor is going to teach me how to make money. And I'm thinking like Gordon Gecko type stuff. And so we go into this class, and the very first assignment was, hey, I want you to go home and write your tombstone and your eulogy and come back and present it to the class next week.
Whoa.
And it has been motivating factor for me to like define, hey, what does my version of well done, good and faithful servant look like, and then to make sure that I'm consistently taking action towards that, and that there's the point of that was basically don't live a deferred life.
Mm.
That hey, whatever my tombstone and eulogy, if it was going to be tomorrow or it was going to be 50 years from now, like the color commentary may look different, but the bullet points hopefully sound the same, right? So the resume may sound different, grandkids and blah blah blah, but like the hey, this is who he was as a person. I hope that that sounds really similar today, and that there's not a gap between what is said 50 years from now and what would be said today. You know.
Dude, that's amazing and inspiring and challenging. Um, do you remember, or do you like still have the eulogy that you wrote for yourself? Like, do you have access to it, or do you
I
remember
have
it?
the tombstone. I bet I probably have the eulogy somewhere, but I know I actually I know that I do. But the tombstone I reference frequently. It kind of stays the same, even though at the time I would say that I was a believer, but I was not intimately walking with Jesus. Somehow I happened to stumble in the exercise. I just stumbled in my Bible and wrote out 1 Timothy 4:7, and that just has like impacted me ever since, and kind of been a life verse.
Yep. First Timothy 4:7. Remind me what that is.
I'm sorry, 2 Timothy 4:7. You're saying this, and I'm like, I'm responding to something from my wife. Sorry, we had a lot. We just
Okay.
moved. We just moved to Nashville, and so just lots of family stuff going on. So trying to honor her. She's at home
Do
with
what you
kids
got to
today.
do.
Parent teacher conference day means that everybody's at home all day.
Yeah. Any given
uh,
day, bro. Any given day, you could see a kid just busting into my office too. So it's
So,
all
anyways,
good.
2 Timothy 4:7 just says, "I fought the good fight, I finished the race, I've kept the faith." And the reason why at that time uh, it resonated, and I think now I've matured in that. But I had heard a message of like a lot of people start strong, but they don't finish well. And as entrepreneurs, we got no problem starting stuff. I've started more things than most. But the problem comes: do we actually follow through? Do we finish well? And as I
Yeah.
thought about that, not just in entrepreneurial endeavors, but in life, what does it look like to finish well? And so I've just had that in front of my mind, not, hey, can I come shooting out the gates, but what does it look like to live an intentional life, build intentional businesses, all of those things, finishing really well what you start, not just starting well.
Yeah. And I was going to ask you, what does finishing well look like? But I suspected you were going to answer with the word intentionality. That's what I suspected. Um, and then you threw out intentionality right there in your description. How would you define intentionality?
I think intentionality would be having a vision of like, what do I want this to look like? And then taking appropriate steps in that direction, right? Consistently.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so if you use let's use a GPS, like in your phone as an example. Hey, if you are in LA and you have a vision for where you want to go to and you want to go to New York, if you don't know where you're going, you're just going to be aimless. It's not intentional. Like, dude, I'm just going down that street. Um, but also, if you are like, I want to go to New York, should I take the a plane or bus or walk? And there's no plan. So I think it involves both like a vision for where you're going and then taking, not always having the perfect plan, but just
Yep.
like, what's the right next step? What's the next thing that I got to go do, and going and doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Right next step is a good framework for that, man. I do find myself sometimes getting overwhelmed by the big picture, and then I'm just like clinging on to whatever I can find as the right next step, which saves me from just drowning in chaos. So I love that language. So now let's get into your design a little bit, because I think anybody listening to you has some sense, even what you just described, probably more than anything else, your definition of intentionality, having a vision, and then you described it as taking appropriate and consistent steps in the right direction. So you obviously care about progress in your own life, progress in other people's lives, finishing well, not just starting things, but finishing well. And so for the Superpower Quest, you took the survey, you put your core drive as order. So of the three, order, harmony, and progress. Order rose above. I mean, you obviously have all three, but order rose above the other two. And so order having to do with structure and a right way to do things, and excellence and all those kinds of things. And then you put as your hero types leader, achiever, which I know some leader achievers, and these tend to be very high capacity people that can both get things done and finish things themselves. That's the achiever part, right? That tenacity gift. But then can also galvanize the people around them, or galvanize teams, or call people into accountability, call people higher, equip and structure people forward, assemble people. That's what the leader does. And so I'd love to hear a little bit more about, with that gift set that God has given you, what do you feel like you're called to do with it?
I mean, right now, I think that there are different seasons of calling, right? So I think that you have gifts that typically probably won't surprise anybody as they transition from different seasons. And then I think you have different seasons in which you're fulfilling that. Right now, I'm getting to support other entrepreneurs and leaders, right? So I'm really coming alongside much more as coach and encourager than I am the one who's actually doing that. Um, that's been a healthy change of perspective for me, right? I'm not in it every single day. I'm coaching others on how to use those gifts. So now I just deeply resonate with all my clients because they almost all have some sort of leader gift inside of them, right?
Yep.
Uh, so
Yep.
yeah, so now I get to really help others and multiply all the things that I've learned through other people. Some days that's really rewarding. Other days it's incredibly frustrating in this
Yeah.
season.
Yeah.
But it's awesome. I love getting to see it and see the impact. I would say it right now. It's really multiplying through other people.
Yep. Yeah. Which makes sense as you get older and as you move more and more towards that sage stage of your
I'm
life,
not that old yet.
you you start to create impact through other people, as opposed to always doing it through yourself. So contrast this with me. In order to be able to coach people the way that you do, you had to have put in your reps, let's say, doing this all yourself, gaining the experience and whatnot. Can you tell us a little bit about the experience that was forged in you that you're now able to bring to the table for other people as a coach?
Yeah, I would classify that as two big different seasons. One, tech entrepreneur. So uh, built a company right out of college, came onto the leadership team. We were a SaaS company before it was even called SaaS. It was just off-prem. But we
Yeah.
were building software products for higher education. We went from 20 universities to 650 universities in 3 years. High
Wow.
growth, really
Yeah.
exciting. Yeah, had a blast getting to do it. Took that company, we're on different pages with the leadership team about what to go do with that company. Ended up selling off a majority of the intellectual property that I've been working on that whole time. And I thought I was hot stuff. I rolled
Yeah.
all that money and ego into the next one, and it crashed and burned. Right? And
Wow.
and to quantify, well, when I say hot stuff, I was just like, man, my friends were not building cool things. They're working 80 hours a week at accounting firms, or they just felt like they were at these big corporations. And I was excited to be building cool new products. Technology was taking off. I was making more money, having more fun, having more freedom, managing more people. And so I was just kind of, yeah, I thought that I was on this fast track and felt like people who didn't want to go build exciting ventures, it just didn't make sense to me. That's how I felt wired, was to lead and start stuff. And I took that attitude into the next one and said, well, I don't want to do this with partners because they don't want to go as fast as me or as big as me. I'm going to go do this on my own.
Yeah.
That did not go well for lots of different reasons, mainly my own doing. So timing was not great. This is 2008. But also, I didn't want technical partners because I felt like we could go figure out how to go build it. So I started outsourcing a bunch of stuff. I had done well enough on the first one that it just all caught up to me. I was hiding it from everybody, anything. I pretty much wanted everything in my life up until that point. And uh, burned through all the cash, went into a ton of debt, didn't want to share that to anybody. And a guy invited me to a church in Dallas called Watermark Community Church, to this men's group that I was working on a business deal with. And it changed my life
Yeah.
because I didn't know that you could talk about this stuff with other people. And all of a
Yeah.
sudden, I get in this room, and these guys are all sharing other stuff that's going on in their life. And like, did I have stuff to work on? Sure, but I wasn't terminally unique. There's all sorts of other guys that were struggling with stuff.
Yes.
Me hiding that only led to other issues where I'm like drinking too much, partying too much, all sorts of other things. And so it wasn't just a business thing, it was an impact in all areas of my life.
Yeah.
Um, anyways,
Man.
uh, major life change in that season. Started
Yep.
finding tons of freedom, started getting wisdom, direction, launch another tech venture that starts doing good, but
Mm-hmm.
also start having this desire to make an impact and use my gifts at the church. With my background in technology, one of the pastors there asked me to come in and start helping with social media and digital content for them. I started doing that. And it just so happened at this time that the ministry starts taking off. It went from a couple hundred people to 4,000 young adults in 2 years. And
That's crazy.
and I just was, in hindsight, I was like, oh, this is just what God does, like all the time. It was just an amazing thing that God was in the midst of.
Yeah.
And why that was happening, so I was overseeing all this digital stuff. We went from like zero engagement, nobody really paying attention to any of the digital content, to people were asking questions all day, every day, you know, big picture esoteric questions, um, and then just nuance type stuff. I didn't know the answer to any of this. I was a believer, but I wasn't really walking intimately with Jesus. I'd never been discipled. And the
Yeah.
pastor, I just forwarded him all the questions. And eventually he was getting tired of answering them all. And he's like, I got to teach you how to answer all this stuff. And so him and I would just talk every day. How do we respond to this? They're saying, hey, uh, my mom's in the hospital with cancer and I don't know that God's good. How do we respond to that? How do we respond? Just day after day, we're getting questions. And so I learned apologetics and evangelism through this digital media and just uh, became an evangelist. Fell in love with evangelism and ended up leading my entrepreneurial spirit. I ended up starting a evangelism ministry on nights and weekends, and we trained 5,000 church members over the course of the next like 5 years to share the gospel with their neighbors, with their coworkers. I was like, let's go knock on people's doors like you do overseas. And this was like, we're in the Bible Belt, and I'm like, I don't know that everybody's really following Jesus. And so we're knocking on doors talking to people of like, hey, are you really following Jesus? Right in the middle of Dallas. It it felt
That's
normal.
wild.
It felt both like normal, as like this is
Yeah.
what we should be doing, and then
Yeah.
revolutionary at the same time. So I'm like, this
Yeah.
feels normal, and all these like vocational ministry people are like, yeah, this feels revolutionary, right? But I'm like, I don't know, this is just what Jesus followers would do. I'm using
Yeah.
my leadership gift, to go do that.
Yes. Yes.
And so that starts to take off. And then about the same time, and this kind of transitions into phase two. So I'll put phase one, all technology and like how to do that. And I start to follow Jesus. Then I get introduced, I'm kind of dreaming about this intersection of faith and entrepreneurship because I'm wrestling through it and I'm trying to get my mind wrapped around it personally. Like, what does
Yep.
this actually mean? And the
Yep.
church that I was at happened to host a conference that Work is Worship from Right Now Media. We just happened to be the host of it. Go to that, really impacted. Start telling people that I'm like wrestling with this, get connected with people who were deep thinkers in this space. I kind of threw out this idea. I'm like, well, what if there was an incubator for faith-driven entrepreneurs in the same way that there is for technology companies? Technology companies big on accelerators, incubators, all these resources that connect capital, people, idea generation, pressure testing. I'm like, what if that was true for Main Street businesses? And I'm kind of dreaming about what that would look like. Start kind of putting resources together, mainly just for me. I still have another tech company. I'm trying to figure it out for myself. And some friends introduced me to a group up in New York City. I was up there for a conference at Tim Keller's church. They said, hey, you need to go meet this guy named Dave Blanchard. He's got this thing going on that's in the same space. He's like passionate about this stuff too. And he has a ministry now. It's like grown. It's amazing. It's called Praxis Labs. At the time, it
Yeah.
was like Dave and we're like on a whiteboard, and he's like telling me about stuff that they're dreaming about. I'm like, this
Yeah.
is so cool. And they had started doing some content, and then they had this other idea that they were kind of thinking about that they called a venture studio, where they would like actually get involved in businesses and help them. So I come back, I'm like excited about this idea. And then about that same time, I'm newly married. Wife is like, hey, I'm married a technology entrepreneur and all that comes with that. Then this ministry that her and I were deeply connected to called Mission of Hope in Haiti. Um, One of the members of our church was going to go be the COO in like 3 years. It kind of once he retired from business, he was going to go be the COO down there. And they call me like 6 months into marriage, and they're like, "Would you consider coming and being this role until he gets here like 3 years from now? We
Whoa.
want you to pastor like the not the Haitian staff, but there was a ton of American staff that were 20 somethings, right? They're like, they're on college internships. So my role in young adults ministry, they're like, you'd be great to help them and do that half the time. And then half the time, hey, maybe you like help us spin up some business ventures, because if we can't ever get people back into Haiti, we don't know what's going on politically. We could be more self-sustaining. Like, this is super interesting. The idea of spinning up social ventures, evangelism, reaching people. My wife were like, "Are we really going to move to Haiti like 6 months into marriage?" Everybody around us is like, "I don't know about that. That's pretty crazy." Was like, "Hey, if you're crazy enough to go to Haiti so that you can reach young adults, help people fulfill their calling, build businesses to help like on justice and mercy type stuff, would you be crazy enough to just do all that stuff right here?" So like, if
Whoa.
you're crazy enough to do it there, would you just do it right here?
Yeah.
Okay, this is really interesting. And so, long story short, I end up exiting my tech venture and
Yeah.
helping Watermark start what's called a community development corporation. We were doing job creation and economic development inside the city.
What?
Yeah.
Are you serious, bro? That's
So
wild.
it was so much fun. And you had a combination of hopefully some leadership IQ and just not know any different, so dreaming big with me, and then amazing elders who that didn't scare them. The idea that we would start something that did job creation was exciting. It wasn't like, whoa, what's the church doing with that? They were excited about this idea, right? So it had some amazing elders. I would describe our church as like over-index for entrepreneurs, where creativity, different ways to do ministry was flourishing. So that was all. That's why I love being there. You had bold leaders who were doing entrepreneurial things for the kingdom of God, and then they were really big on, hey, we want to help you discover, develop, and deploy your gifts. And for me, that was being an entrepreneur. So they're like, this is awesome. You want to be entrepreneurial? Go figure it out.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
started that, and it was awesome, deeply tied into our local missions. So we started focusing more on job creation for Second Chance. So mainly formerly incarcerated single moms, and it just, yeah, it felt right and holy and making a huge impact. And so that's who we were serving, were people who wanted to start businesses in that demographic. But the people that we were on my board and contributing resources were guys who had big businesses, the biggest banks, the biggest, best entrepreneurs. Were all like, this sounds way more fun than greeting and holding the door on Sunday. You're telling me I can like go get in the thick of things? And
So cool.
so I started going from me being the entrepreneur to now I'm kind of in between and helping shepherd entrepreneurs, right? Like, I'm helping connect these dots. It was just really amazing seeing how much in common these people are broken in really different ways. So you had the very successful in the world's eyes entrepreneur who often was broken relationship with their dad and relationship with money and people, and it just manifested itself differently and turned into drive to go create this stuff. And then you had people that had broken the same kind of broken relationships, and then they really struggled. And so
Yeah.
neither of them were necessarily came from healthy backgrounds, and yet they would like spend time with each other, and they just started becoming friends. It was amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, yeah, my passion started going from me being the entrepreneur to helping serve entrepreneurs, right? As
There
I
we
started
go.
building this, and it
There
was
we
just
go.
awesome. Got to do that, and it was really hard. Like, I'm
Yeah.
describing the like, I mean, this is just
Yeah.
messy because you're talking about a wide variety of economic diversity, racial diversity. What is the church doing, being involved in any of this stuff, right? So different frameworks of even what's the role of the local church to be engaged in these kind of conversations. None of it is like programming that is just super tight, that's like input equals output.
Yep.
You're kind of
Yep.
just guessing and making stuff up along the way. And we wanted to be an incubator for those ideas. So people have written books about these things, but it mainly is in theory. It's not in reality. And we were like, we want to be the ones who actually do it. So if somebody's got an idea, let's test it. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, bro.
We're okay with breaking stuff. Um, and just for me, really grateful to have leaders that some of them caught, or some of them I would say had the vision. They're like encouraging this. It's not just me. And then others who maybe didn't start there, but they got behind the idea.
Yes.
It was not
Yes.
stifling. They're asking questions, but we want to support. And so I'm so really grateful for just people that were supportive of making an impact in that way through the local church, which is unusual, right? I mean, entrepreneurs think that way, but for local church elders to think that way is amazing.
It's so beautiful, man, and it's so rare to see. There's something like it's interesting because I have a friend named Nate Ulrich, and what's going on in their community right now, this kind of intersection between this entrepreneurial spirit, and then people that really understand that world, and then people who really just love Jesus, and then all of that coming together to impact a community in tangible, measurable ways. They're in the middle of a story like this, like what you described, Ryan, right now in Lakewood, Colorado. And so I'm just shout out to Nate Ulrich. I know you're going to watch this, and you pay attention to this guy. Ryan, you've learned some things that probably can benefit my friend Nate. I think they're earlier in the process.
That's awesome. I love it.
But man,
That goes transitions to today. So one of the guys I get connected with is an entrepreneur there. We just had our first kid. My wife's staying home at full time. And one of the guys that was connected ran an investment fund. He said, "Hey, I know that you come from an entrepreneurial background. I know your wife's staying home full time. Been kind of wondering if you might be able to help us just like a couple hours a week to make us better as a company. And then we could pay you a little bit, and that would make up for your wife, being home." I'm like, oh man, this sounds
yep,
awesome. What would that look?
yep,
What's going on? Tell me more about your business. We were constantly talking about his business, and they had at the time at investment fund had about 2 billion under management, and he was just navigating 5 friends that they all kind of knew each other from faith community had started this business, and it started to take off.
yep,
And it was more than what they ever kind of imagined. But then it just got stuck for a season of a couple of years, and you could tell that they were all frustrated and confused about like, hey, what does this next season look like?
yep,
Initially, it was to just come help in and resolve some conflict, then started to navigate clarity of like, what does the future look like? And through that, I just started taking the leadership team through some exercises and realized that everybody wasn't on the same page. They weren't handling conflict well. They didn't necessarily know how to go execute things. And so there's just a new idea all the time about what to go and execute, and they never really, they just stopped getting traction. They kind of had plateaued. And so through a number of exercises and trying to get clarity, then 3 partners bought out 2 other partners. They transformed the way the leadership team kind of operated. They had different rules of engagement for culture and how they were going to make decisions. And over the next 3 years, the company just took off. And you could just tell
yeah,
that everything felt lighter. Like, so it's not even about the size and scope. You could just tell people were operating in their gifts. They seemed happier. It's not like everything was perfect, but it just, the effort that was getting applied to the flywheel didn't have to be as hard, right? It was like things
yes,
were working. And so him and I had been talking. It's like, hey, do I come work for him full time? Then I was like, man, I'm an entrepreneur. I don't know that I work for anybody. Actually, I'm kind of getting tired of this nonprofit life because I've got a board to report to. I had an independent board, then I had a board of elders, and then all the constraints of like value creation in nonprofits are totally different in business. So I was like, I kind of want to go start my own thing again, go lead. I don't know what that'll look like, but I love serving guys like you. Like, I wish that I could just support faith-driven entrepreneurs building great businesses. And so I started to explore what that would look like.
yeah,
My entire nonprofit board know, hey, I think this is where God's calling me to. I don't exactly know what this looks like, but I'm getting energized by this. My wife keeps telling me hey, I see this in you. You just look like you're ready to do push-ups every time after you hang out here, and then there's other times that you look like you want to curl up in the fetal position, and he's like, you should do the stuff that you want to get that you get energized by.
Yeah.
Which my friends at Colby talk about, and Culture Index says this too. Like whenever you're operating outside of your gifting and you're not doing really what God's calling you, that is the feeling of wanting to curl up in the fetal position, right?
Yes.
You're doing something
Yes.
that you're not created to do. And so
Amen.
I started exploring what that would look like, and I went and talked to my entire board, and I think like 3 or 4 board members out of 7 brought up me doing EOS, all for totally different reasons. Like one
Crazy.
didn't even know EOS. He just said he's an investor. He's got 35 or 40 closely held businesses in his portfolio family office. I'm like, well, tell me what those guys need. How could best serve them? He says, what I know is they don't need to know how to run a Bible study. They need to know how to run a meeting. He's like, don't teach them how to run a Bible study. Like these guys need to know how to run a meeting. And then in that, he goes, I've heard this thing called a L10 meeting. Do you know anything about that? Like, I heard it's really good for running meetings, right? Which is the EOS framework. So he didn't even know necessarily what EOS was, but he had this thing where he was frustrated by some of his portfolio companies. Then I had another board member, and he had just read Traction, and he was like, dude, this is one of my best friends. He's like, hey, maybe I would pay you to like help us with this. I don't know what else, but would you ever be interested in doing this for us? So I'm a quick start. I'm an entrepreneur. I like go call the US worldwide. I'm like, what does it take for me to go figure this out? Of course I can help you. I go through the boot camp, and by the time I get done with boot camp, he had already hired another implementer. He's like, dude. And I was like, man, what? Ends up being a huge blessing in disguise because I'm like, I don't want the guinea pig the first time that I start doing this to be like with one of my best friends, right? This is like my
Yeah.
hunting buddy. Uh,
Yeah.
and now he's a client, actually. Like they worked with somebody else for 3 years, and now he's a client, and I'm actually implementing with another company that he has too. So it's ended up working great. So that's how I
Awesome.
got into doing EOS. It just made a ton of sense for a couple of reasons, but as I read through Traction and the source work that had really influenced Gino, then it took me back 20 years when I was in college, and it was all the same source work that impacted Gino is what impacted me.
Yeah.
Now, what Gino did, the founder of EOS, that I
Yep.
wanted to
Gino
do,
Wickman.
yeah, that I did not have put in the discipline or have the vision for. Gino took all this source work, so stuff from Jim Collins and Good to Great, stuff from all of Patrick Lencioni's work, Vern Harnish's work. He curated all of that into simple tools and packaged it in a way that was applicable to small businesses and then turned it into action and not theory. So that always all the ideas resonated with me. Like you can't not read Good to Great and like resonate with the ideas. But then it's like, well, what do I do with this? Okay, I hear you got to get all the right kind of people on the bus. Like, what does that even mean? How do you discern who the right people are? And what do you do about that? And what's the practical next step that you take? And that was for me lacking. So the idea made sense. But then when I read Traction, I'm like, oh, he's taken that idea and turned it into a practical way that a small business can go execute on it. I'm like, I mean, I was through, chapter 1. And I'm like, this is how I think. This is what I
Yeah.
want to be doing.
Yeah, bro.
Yeah. So, anyways, that's how I became EOS implementer.
So good, man. And sounds like you work with a decent amount of churches and nonprofits. I think you told me that's about a third of your client base. Um, do you work only with faith-driven entrepreneurs, or like
Now I
faith
do.
leadership teams?
I didn't start that way, um, but now, yeah, all of the leaders, and so what I a third of my clients are faith-driven nonprofits or churches. Two-thirds
Okay.
of my clients, I would describe the visionary as motivated by their faith. What I love about EOS is their whole leadership team may not share that worldview. So there's a
Yep.
whole spectrum of how
Yep.
faith-driven leaders build their
Yep.
companies. Some of them, they want their whole leadership team to share their same biblical worldview.
Yep.
Others, that is not as a priority for different reasons, but they view it as part of their ministry to reach other people.
Yep.
And so, what I love about EOS is it lets me in the room
Yes.
with a wide variety of teams, and it's
Yep.
practical. But for me, the conviction of working with entrepreneurs who are motivated by their faith is one, the way that just me and them resolve conflict and work through stuff. Then there's a biblical perspective. The way that we're thinking about the sort of ventures that we want to build, and the redemptive nature of those is different if we share the same worldview. And the ultimate goal of what to build with those ventures hopefully looks different, because I just view it as a tool, a thing that we get to steward, right? And the business is not like the ultimate goal. And so when we have um, entrepreneurs hopefully share that same worldview. Now, there's sometimes people who are following Jesus and have a little bit bifurcated work life, and so I may be coaching them on that a little bit. But a ton of, ironically, ton of my clients have actually been through Praxis, the thing that I was talking about from 10, 15 years ago. And so
That's wild.
they've been very intentional about the way that they want to build their venture. And so EOS just provides, like, if they're aligned on that, EOS just provides the tools to actually go execute on it. And we're not having to navigate the vision about what we're trying to build. We're already speaking the same language. We've been highly influenced by the
Yep.
same people. And so EOS just provides tools to go actually go do it.
Dude, so good, man. It's so good. So the last thing is we're coming to a close. Can you tell us a dream that you have, or so much of what I'm trying to do here is facilitate collaboration and connection and people opening doors for each other. And so for people to open doors for you, they've got to understand where you're going, what direction you're heading. And so can you tell us big dream, little goal, something on the trajectory of what you'd like to accomplish?
Yeah, what I'm trying to do is help people build better organizations and live a better life. Those two, and I think those two things go together. And so I'm spending my time doing both of those things. And by better organization, I want them to have a clear, compelling vision, uh,
Yep.
that they are executing on that day
Yep.
to day, that they're not just like
Yep.
dreaming about it out in the mountains, but they're actually doing it. And then
Yep.
healthy, that, man, that it is just life giving to work there, the way that they talk to each other, resolve conflict, that it's just energizing, that there's healthy dynamics, right? And I think that is where these two things play together for me, right? Is that be the organizational side, and then that gives freedom to live a really intentional life, right?
Yep.
Those two things to go
Yep.
together, so that people would be in their sweet spot at work, but then they're also able to be present in the way that they um, for me, it's kind of seven core areas of their faith. Like, what is it that they believe and belong to a local body and be trained in truth, and that they would deploy their gifts in a like really God honor. They
Yes.
have intentionality in their family, first starting
Yes.
with their spouse, right? And that's really hard when you have young kids. You
Yep.
forget that you're married because
Yep.
you're so worried about being a parent. It's like, hey, there's a priority that's like, man, be an amazing spouse, then a
Yes.
really intentional dad, for me.
Yes.
So it's, my wife sometimes she's like, you're dreaming about like shaping our son. I'm like, I envision this day when he's getting married and he's 30, and I'm like giving the speech, and she's like, I'm still just worried about diapers, so uh,
Yeah.
that's the vision side, the entrepreneurial side, and so I got to remember. Oh yeah, we got to worry about diapers too. But I'm constantly just trying to. I had this pastor friend. He said this when it came to parenting. That's been really impactful. He said, "Hey, we're trying to raise a godly adult, not an obedient child."
Yes.
And so sometimes that's hard because I really want my child to obey and like go to bed on time and not keep asking for ice cream, But I'm trying to raise a godly adult.
Yep.
And then
Yep.
with our vocation, which we've already been talking about, work, but our calling, and that's both paid and unpaid, but like how are we using our gifts to impact the world? The stewardship of our finances,
Yep. Yep.
health, and
Yep.
fitness, right? And that's a
Yep.
big, I feel like the church doesn't do a great job at talking about that. our friendship and relationships, right? Both like intimate community, our neighbors. Um, and I feel like that's really hard, especially for young parents. It's just like survive. Then it's like your friendships are who you're connected to through your kids' sports. And so, how do you actually have a handful of relationships where you're both um, known intimately and fully loved by people and not just like superficial? And then finally, just how to have a little bit of fun. And that's going to look
Yeah,
different for
man.
everybody, but I'm like, man.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
anyways, live an intentional life in those seven buckets. That's what I'm really dreaming about. And man, if I can just do that for me, that's my little goal is for me to be
Yeah.
intentional in those
Yes,
things.
sir.
You
Yes,
know,
sir.
my big dream is to help other people do that stuff really well. But my little goal is just like, man, this starts with Ryan Wall being intentional in those seven areas of life and giving an account for that because I think that's what it looks like for me to finish well. And
Yes.
man, if there's a way for me to encourage people so that they can finish well, awesome. But that my little goal is me doing it. But
So
I'm so
good.
passionate about it that our family, we just said, hey, we want to be, we want a way to pay attention to this. And I don't know anything about your spouse, but me and my wife were struggling to communicate these ideas really succinctly in a way that we weren't that we could hear each other. And so then I ended up building a system because that's what we do. That's what I do professionally at work. Is companies are on different pages about how they do stuff. Said, hey, me and her got to be on the same page. So we built a way for us two to communicate that called Family OS.
Yep.
And
Yep.
now we're starting to share that with other people where it's like, hey, if you want to live a really intentional life, then we're building tools and systems and frameworks. That's where I think my little LinkedIn headline just says frameworks for faithfulness. And what I mean by that is like, man, I don't want a perfect plan. That's not how God's wired me, is not to have this perfect laid out plan. I just kind of want like a framework that I can come back to, just like we were
Yep.
talking earlier on making a decision for prayer or guidance from God. And it's like, hey, if I could go back to like a framework that says, uh, prayer, people, and God's precepts, man, if I can get alignment around those three things, we're usually on the same page. I feel like I'm moving in the right direction. I think in terms of frameworks. That's part of how God's wired me is to think. That I think you said earlier, order, right?
Yes.
So that's just somehow God's wired me. It's not the perfect plan, right?
Yes.
I'm okay at planning, but I think I'm really good at frameworks, which is just how do you
Yeah.
think about things, having the big picture vision, and then taking action, which is that
Yes.
intentionality, right, that we were talking about earlier.
Dude, it's such a beautiful gift, man. And so we did get to talk a little bit about the family OS part. I'd love to talk with you about that more, but we're out of time for today. But I will include links to the website so people can get a sense for that seed of a movement, right? That I think so many people resonate with the need for applying some of this order and structure to our families for progress. Ryan, dude, thanks for sitting with me today, man.
And thank you for having me. Yeah, this is great.
It's so fun to be with you, man, and just to see what the Lord's doing with your life. And for anybody who stayed with us up to this point, thank you for being with us today for this episode. And we appreciate you very much. So take it easy, everybody.